Welcome to A2A Conversations, an ongoing discussion about turning adversity into advocacy. Join us as we explore the power of purpose, service, and empathy, and the resilience we build when helping ourselves by helping others. Now here's our host, A2A founder, Jeff Bell.
My guest today is one of the most creative adversity-driven advocates that I've ever run across, and I think the segment will give you a sense of that creativity. Zack Burton is the co-founder of the Manic Monologues, a play and storytelling platform featuring true stories about people living with mental illness. Zack himself was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2017. Two quick notes here. First, I want to let you know in advance that this conversation does touch on the sensitive subject of self-harm, so please be advised about that. Also, as always, we'd like to remind you that if you or someone you know is in crisis, help is available. You can call or text 988 or text TALK to 741-741. So, Zack, you have been kind enough over the years to share your story through a number of channels with our A2A audience. For folks who have not had the opportunity to hear about your journey, let's back it up to 2017 and a fateful day for you on the Stanford campus.
Absolutely. So my journey, my mental health journey really began in 2017, and it was in the wee hours of May 8th, 2017 that I was at the culmination of a long extended period of mania and ultimately was experiencing a psychotic break, an episode of psychosis, and I climbed to the top of a Stanford University parking garage intent on harming myself. But fortunately, I remembered these words that my mom had told me when I was just a teenager. And she had said, if I ever think about hurting myself, I need to tell her. And so I hesitantly dialed her number. My mom picked up the phone and saved my life. In the weeks that followed, I was hospitalized for a couple of weeks, and ultimately was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 with psychosis and suicidality. And so that started me off and really set the stage for my own mental health journey and pathway ultimately into recovery and thriving alongside my diagnosis.
Talk about the diagnosis itself. Was it freeing to get that? Was it scary? Was it a combination of the two?
It was terrifying for me at first. And there was a strong period of denial. I had all of this self-stigma where I was like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't have a mental illness. This can't possibly be true. And I actually went off my medications and had a relapse of psychosis. And that was kind of when I had all the wind taken out of my sails and this sort of serious sort of being knocked over the head and told, no, this is real. You need to take this seriously. Ultimately, in the wake of that, in the months that followed, in the years that followed, I would become very proud of this label and proud of the label of bipolar disorder, and to a degree that it is much more liberating and allows me to sort of both identify treatments for what I experience for this diagnosis of bipolar disorder, and then also to advocate and sort of move forward and connect with others who experience similar diagnoses.
I want to hear about some of the resources that you tapped into during your recovery years.
Absolutely. So from the get-go for me, my mom was life-saving. So family support was critical. And further resources included my roommates at the time. So they were extremely supportive in the months after I was hospitalized. And I think that that sort of note of having close friends or close family members who can be supportive rather than detrimental to our recovery is critical. For me, it was a couple years before I found the peer movement, and so encountered other people who were living with diagnoses out there, advocating, sort of championing mental health destigmatization. And for me, that connection with the peer movement has been absolutely liberating as well, and has been really, for me, a cause of tremendous sort of energy and fulfillment, is connecting with the peer movement, connecting with other people who are out there, advocating and living and thriving alongside their diagnoses.
At what point during this journey, Zack, did you decide, hey, I want to share my story, and why?
For me, it was about a year or so after my diagnosis. And so this was in the summer of 2018. And really, I felt that I had just such a profound privilege to have been diagnosed and then to have recovered, and to have experienced tremendous support. As you mentioned, the support network for me was critical. And I felt so privileged. And I had this thought of, who am I to recover when there are so many people out there who are struggling with these diagnoses, struggling with these experiences. And so for me, it was about a year after that diagnosis that I decided, hey, I want to do something about this. I want to connect with others. I want to share stories. I want to elevate stories. And that was what ultimately led me into the creation of the Manic Monologues, which is a play that showcases diverse true stories of mental health and illness. So any manner of diagnosis, any manner of experience, and told from varying perspectives, from people who are living with diagnoses themselves, but also told by family members, told by loved ones, told by psychiatrists. And so that was, for me, really my foray into giving back and into advocacy work.
I want to ask you about the evolution of the Manic Monologues, because it's such a fascinating story. You're a guy who didn't come to this with theater experience.
No, I am not. So I'm a geologist by training. When I was hospitalized, I was undertaking a PhD program in geology at Stanford. And so theater was really out of left field for me. In May of 2018, I sort of came up with this idea that I would create the vagina monologues, but for mental illness. And so the name came to me, the Manic Monologues. And I went to my partner at the time, Elisa Hoffmeister, and was like, hey, we should do a play where we showcase these stories. And really the desire to use theater as the medium for these stories was really guided by the fact that theater has this ability to hold people captive in an experience and really force people to sit together, literally together, in a theater, and sit in the shoes of someone else, walk in the shoes of someone else, and really engage with these stories that we may either be familiar with and resonate with, or we may have not previously had exposure to, but now may be exposed to. And so that was really the desire in turning to theater for the Manic Monologues, was to really hold people captive in these experiences and also bring people together in a communal fashion to engage with, empathize with, and really connect with these stories.
You have had such success with this project. Let's talk about some of the highlights for you.
Oh my goodness, it's been a continuous and endless highlight reel with the Manic Monologues. So the premiere was in May of 2019 at Stanford. And we had 3 sold out nights, 600 people attended. There was coverage in the Washington Post, NPR, just really tremendous reception for that initial performance. Then we saw a lot of traction building up. There was a performance in November of 2019 in Des Moines, Iowa. February 2020, we took a subset of our Stanford cast down to Los Angeles, did a performance for UCLA, and then the pandemic hit. And at first, the pandemic seemed like something of a death sentence for live theater. But fortunately, we were able to pivot and were able to bring to life some virtual offerings. So we ended up filming the Manic Monologues in Orlando, Florida in August 2020. And that film has gone on as screenings for NAMI, screenings for the Mayo Clinic, screenings for a large 50 hospital healthcare system. That has sort of been a blessing in disguise, was having this film that now can be shared quite readily and quite easily with audiences. We also saw, starting in 2021, a number of virtual performances of the Manic Monologues. And one of our big breakout performances was a production by McCarter Theater Center, which is a Tony Award-winning theater in New Jersey. And they had partnered with Princeton University, One Mind, the 24-hour plays, and several others, and brought to life this virtual, interactive, theatrical experience that lives in an online platform and has actors from Broadway, actors from films, with some really star-studded cast of actors bringing to life these stories, and also offers interactive resources, as well as a number of expert panels. And that is just one of my favorite productions that came about because of the pandemic, was really this sort of virtual interactive experience. And that has gone on to be nominated for the Drama League Awards, which are the oldest theatrical honors in the United States. And it's also a winner of the 2021 to 2022 NASPA Excellence Awards in recreation and wellness. So really amazing to see the reception of that production, and also most critically to see these stories continue to be accessible during the pandemic and as we hopefully recover and move on from the pandemic. There have been I could continue on and on, but there have been a number of other virtual performances. And now just during Mental Health Awareness Month here in 2022, we saw 3 in-person productions, one in London in the United Kingdom, one in Connecticut, and one in Florida. So a return to in-person theater, which is just tremendous to see.
When you look back at the success with the benefit of hindsight, what do you make of it? I mean, why has this particular project resonated so well with so many people around the world?
I think it's just about time these stories were told, and about time these stories were brought out of the closet, so to speak. These stories need to be heard, and people really connect with this diversity of stories because they feel heard. I think people do feel heard. And really it is, I would say it's about time that these stories were taken to the stage, literally and metaphorically, and had a spotlight shown on them.
Zack, I would be remiss not to ask you about how all of this work is impacting you personally, as you know, as a member of the A2A Alliance. We believe that we help ourselves by helping others. How have you found that to be true for yourself?
It is absolutely true for me. And something I love so much about the A2A's mission and the A2A's message, really helping ourselves by helping others. So for me, advocating both through the Manic Monologues, but also through a number of other organizations that I volunteer for, speak with, engage with, I just find so much personal fulfillment. And really, I feel that I've been able to reclaim this narrative of my own mental illness and turn that into this just tremendously positive experience. And that for me is kind of the epitome of recovery, and connecting with peers and advocating.
One of the things I'm trying to do through this particular series, A2A Conversations, is explore the ability of one individual to make a huge difference. And I'd like to ask you to speak to somebody who might be thinking, gosh, this is fascinating what Zack has done and what so many others have done, but who am I to go public with my story? What do I have to share? And how can I, as one individual, make a difference?
Absolutely. I think it can be daunting, certainly daunting, both because of the stigma that surrounds mental health conditions and opening up, but also just because of that sort of impetus needed to start something, to get out there. I would say you can start small. You can start by telling friends. You can speak to family members. I think for me, part of what's been surprising about opening up and advocating, and something that I would have never anticipated, is that I've found that people in my life who I didn't know were facing mental health challenges have suddenly felt safe in opening up to me about their experiences. And that has been such a tremendous privilege. I think for me, if nothing else, simply allowing a safe space, creating a safe space for friends, colleagues, coworkers, people I've met in passing in my scientific work, that has been such a tremendous privilege and such a tremendous sort of unexpected, unanticipated benefit to opening up about my own mental health experiences. So I would say opening up to any degree can create that safe space for others and can just create solidarity in these experiences that many of us face.
Well, I'm compelled to say here that I so admire your openness. You talked about opening up. You have been so candid in your advocacy over the years, and I know that's a real gift to the mental health advocacy community. So thank you on behalf of all of us for sharing your story so openly. I can't wait to hear about the next chapter of your advocacy, as I know that there will be many more to come.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I want to echo this mission of A2A and showing that by helping others, we really are helping ourselves. I just love that so much. And I love all that A2A stands for.
You've been watching A2A Conversations, a presentation of the nonprofit A2A Alliance. Guest views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect those of A2A, its advocates, advisors, or partners. To watch more of our A2A Conversations, please visit us online at a2aalliance.org.